So in this video, I'm going to show you the solutions to the mathematics knowledge subtest of the ninth practice test on my website. Question 1 says 10 plus 40 divided by 10 times 2. Whenever you see a problem like this, you should immediately think order of operations. To remember the order of operations, more often than not, people remember Pemdas, which stands for parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. That is, this is the order in which you work out problems like these. You start with parentheses, you move to exponents next, you work out multiplication from left to right, and you work out addition and subtraction from left to right. In this case, we don't have any parentheses, as we can see. And let me rewrite this over here. 10 plus 40 divided by 10 times 2. So we don't have any parentheses, nor do we have any exponents, but we do have multiplication and division. Again, we work those out from left to right, so the division is here first, and then the multiplication. So I'm going to do this division first. That is, I'm going to do 40 divided by 10, which is just 4 times 2. So the division is out of the way. Now we're still working with multiplication, which we do before addition and subtraction. So I'm going to do 4 times 2, which is going to give me 8. And then finally I'm going to do addition, which is going to be 10 plus 8, or 18, which is right there. So there's that one. You will see problems very likely on test day that require you to use Pemdas. So make sure you know what it is and more specifically how to use it. In all the practice tests on this website, there is a question about Pemdas. Number 2 says put the following fractions in order of least to greatest. So I like to get the fractions lined up for the ones I already know. I know 1/3 is the same as 0.333 repeated, so I'm going to drop that down somewhere right here. And I like to use decimals just to help me figure out what these other fractions are equivalent to. I know 1/2 is, and I can cross that out since I got rid of it. I know 1/2 is the same as 0.5, so that's going to be here ahead of 0.333. 5 over 6, 2/7, and 17 over 20, I don't know. But thankfully, all fractions are the same as long division. That is to say, 5 over 6 is the same as 5 divided by 6. To work this out, we ask ourselves, how many times does 6 go into 5? It doesn't. It's too small. I have to add a 0. By adding that 0, I have to throw up a decimal right there. How many times does 6 go into 50? The answer is 8. 6 times 8 is 48. Subtract 50 minus 48 is 2. Add a 0. 6 goes into 20 3 times without going over. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract, that's going to be 2. So this is going to be 0.83333, which is ahead of 0.85. So I'm going to put that right here. And I'm just going to note that it is repetitive. 2/7, well, we can do the long division for practice. Again, all fractions can be regarded as a long division. 2 goes into 7 3 times without going over. 2 times 3 is 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. Add a 0. Oh, and I forgot to add that decimal right there. 2 goes into 10 5 times without going over. 5 times 2 is... Oh, I've made a mistake here. Just bear with me. Again, we're doing 2 divided by 7, not 7 divided by 2. Sorry about that. That's my mistake. So 7 goes into 2. It doesn't. It's too small. I have to add a 0. By adding that 0, I have to bring up a decimal. 7 goes into 20 2 times without going over. 7 times 2 is 14. We're going to subtract. 20 minus 14 is 6. Add a 0. We can already see that this is going to be 0.2 something, so that's going to be over here. And again, this is the fraction 2/7. This is 1/3. This is 1/2. This is 5, 6. So just one more to do, namely 17 divided by 20, and I did write it down correctly there. 20 goes into 17. It doesn't. It's too small to add a 0. When I add that 0, I have to bring up a decimal place right there. 20 goes into 170 8 times. 8 times 20 is 160. Okay, so now we need to determine if this is going to be bigger than 0.83. 170 minus 160 is 10. 20 doesn't go into 10, so I have to add a 0. 20 goes into 105 times with no remainder. So I know this is going to be, let me get rid of this so we can work this out. This is going to be 0.85, which is 17 over 20. So this is the order in which they should be: 2/7, 1/3, 1/2, 5/6, 17, 20th. You need to be able to know that fractions can be converted to decimals by doing long division. In case you get some weird fractions like this, by doing the long division, which isn't too difficult to do at all, as you just saw, you can quickly solve these problems. And for some of them, you don't even have to do long division. Okay, so that's that one. And again, the math knowledge subtest is generally easier than the arithmetic reasoning subtest. That rings true for this one. Unlike the arithmetic reasoning subtest, this one's slightly easier to do. So we have 3 7/8, and the question says, what is the reciprocal of 3 7/8? As we can see, all of our numbers, all of our answer choices are improper fractions. So the first thing I want to do before we even discuss what the reciprocal is to convert this mixed number into an improper fraction. To do that, multiply 3 by 8, which is 24, and then you add 7. 24 plus 7 is 31. You put that all over the same denominator, which is 8. The reciprocal basically just flips these. So this is going to be 8 over 31, which is right there. Again, if I were to ask you what the reciprocal of 5/12 is, you would just flip them, and it'd be 12 over 5. What's the reciprocal of 15 over 12? Flip them, 12 over 15. The only trick in this problem was you had to go from a mixed number to an improper fraction to the reciprocal. Okay, number 4, let me grab my pen real quick. Number 4 says, which of the following is equivalent to 42,549.23 times 10 to the negative second? So this is scientific notation. We're given a question in scientific notation, and the answer choice is in scientific notation. Thankfully, this is pretty easy to do. Whenever this exponent is negative, it's going to shift this decimal to the left however many times however big this number is. So it's 2, 1, 2. So in other words, 42,549.23 times 10 to the negative 2 is 425.4923. Okay? Unfortunately, that's not one of our answer choices, so we have to work these out. Anything times 10 to the 1 is just going to be itself, so this is not the right answer choice. Again, this is 4 million. That's not right. Times 10 to the 4th, well, when it was negative, we moved it to the left. Since it's positive, we move it to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. This gets us this number, which is not this. Let's do this one. 4.254923 times 10 to the second. Again, it's positive 2, so 1, 2, which gets us this number. It matches this number, so this is our answer choice. So that's scientific notation for you. All right. Number 5 says, what is the next number in the following series? And again, the way to do these is just to look for patterns. There's no real way to explain how to do them apart, from looking from patterns. And in this case, I see I got 3, 6, 12. In other words, these are doubling. To go from 3 to 6, I double. To go from 6 to 12, I double. And the next one would fit in this pattern, so I'm going to say that's 24 for now. Let's take a look at this one. This one is -4, -4, but this answer choice doesn't come to after this one. So you basically have two patterns going on here. You have ×2 and -4. Okay? Fortunately enough, this blank answer choice falls in on the ×2 pattern, so we know the answer is going to be 24. Okay, number 6 says, what is the volume of liquid remaining in this cylinder? Again, cylinders really look like this. You're getting a side view here. This is what a cylinder looks like. And you do need to know the volume of, you need to know how to find the volume of a cylinder. Fortunately enough, it's pretty easy. It's volume equals pi r squared times height. That is, you find the area of this circle and multiply it by the height of the cylinder. So basically, area of a circle times height. That's how I remember volume. In this case, however, we're not doing the full height here. Instead, we're going 2, 4, 6, and this is 8, 10. We're only going to 6. So basically, you have to imagine that we have a volume that's 6 centimeters, a cylinder that's 6 centimeters tall. And since this diameter is 8 centimeters and we only want a radius of 4, we only want the radius. The radius is always half the diameter. So this radius is going to be 4 centimeters. Now we have everything we need to solve for this one. So it's going to be volume equals pi. Radius is 4, so that's going to be 16. I skipped ahead. Let me not do that. 4 squared, and the height in this case is just to 6. Okay. Let's go ahead and keep working this out. 4 squared is 16 times 6. Let me work that off to the side. 16 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Carry the 3. 1 times 6 is 6 plus 3 is 9. So this is 96 pi cubed. Normally, you would have to work this out by multiplying by pi, in which case you'd let pi be 3.14. But if you come down and look at the answer choices, you can see that they didn't make you do that. They just made you get to this point. So the answer to this one is 96 pi cubed. And we do cubed because we're looking for the volume. If it was area, it would be squared. So that's that one. Number 7 says a practice diving tank is 16 feet long, 12 feet wide, and 14 feet deep. So it's a cube. Let me go ahead and, or it's a rectangular prism. So let me go ahead and draw one of those out. Again, that's going to look like this. And bear with me with my sketch here. It's not going to be the best. Okay, so there's the rectangular prism. We're told that it's 16 feet long, which is this way. It's 12 feet wide, which is this way. And it is 14 feet deep, which is the height, so it's 14 there. It's currently filled to the 3-foot mark, so it's filled right there. And we're told that it must get filled to the 12-foot mark in order for class to practice their first dive. How many cubic feet of water must be added to the pool in order to fill it so that it's 12 feet deep? So to go from 3 feet deep, which it's already at, to 12 feet, you have to add 9 cubic feet of water. So in other words, we're going to be finding the volume of this rectangular prism, which is simply length times width times height. We already know what we're going to use for length. It's going to be 16. Our width is going to be 12, and our height, as I just mentioned, is going to we're just going up 9 feet. So this height we're going to put that as 9. So all we have to do is multiply this all out, which is a little tedious, but it's not too bad. 16 times 12. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. Add a 0. 1 times 6 is 6. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add. 0 plus 2 is 2. 3 times 6 is 9. 1 plus nothing is just 1. And we still got to multiply this by 9, so 192 times 9. Take your time here. This is where you can make a mistake. 9 times 2 is 18. Carry the 1. 9 times 9 is 81. Plus 1 is 82. Carry the 8. 9 times 1 is 9. Plus 8 is 17. So the volume is going to be 1,728 feet cubed. Okay, and by that's how much water you would add in terms of cubic feet to go from 3 feet deep to 12 feet deep. Okay, so far nothing's been too bad. Number 8 says, which of the following is equivalent to 3k squared plus 4k? And that's going to be this. 3, and again, that's multiplied by k times k, plus k plus k plus k plus k. You just have to recognize that squared means times by itself, however many times, so we got k times k, and then 4k is just the equivalent of 4k plus k plus k plus k 4 times, which is this one. If you wanted to, you could have put real numbers in here and figured it out. For example, you could have put 2 in there and solved it like this, and then plug 2 into these to see which one would give you the equivalent answer. But this one's easy enough to see without doing that. So which of these lines are parallel? We can clearly see that this is slanted with these angles, whereas all these are right angles. So if these were parallel, these would be right angles and these would be right angles. So we know y and x aren't parallel. The only obvious answer choice for this one is y and z. Okay, so that's that one. No real complicated geometry to do on that one. You just have to be able to see it. And it's fairly easy to see. Alright, number 10 says, which of these sets of angles would make an isosceles triangle? First, I want to point out that in every triangle, all the sides are going to add up to 180 degrees. So if one of these doesn't add up to 180 degrees, it's not an isosceles triangle. What's more, in an isosceles triangle, let me see if I can draw one for you. You're always going to have 2 angles that are equivalent. Okay? So in order to be an isosceles triangle, it has to meet these 2 conditions. 1, all the angles have to add up to 180 degrees. And 2, 2 of the angles must be equivalent. So let's go ahead and work through these. 80 and 80, we do have 2 angles that are equivalent. But 80 plus 80 is 160, plus 100 will give you 260. Again, it doesn't meet this condition. It's over 180. No 2 angles are the same there. All 3 angles are the same there, and they only add up to 150. So this is our only answer choice, but let's prove it. 55, 55. We can see we have two angles that are the same. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 5 plus 5 is 10. Plus 1 is 110. 110 plus 70. You should be able to see it's 180. So it meets the two conditions. It adds up to 180, and two of the angles are equivalent. Okay, so that's that one. Alright, number 11 says, if the two triangles below are similar, what is the perimeter of DEF? So again, we want to find the perimeter of DEF. First, I want to say, to find the perimeter of anything, all you do is add up all the sides. So in order to find the perimeter of DEF, I need to find the length of this side and the length of this side. Then I'm just going to go side 1, side 2, side 3. I'm just going to add those up. And we already know one of them. Let's let this be side 1. We already know that's 5, so we can plug that in. But that said, we have to use the fact that these are similar triangles to find these other two lengths. And to go from 2 to 5, I know I would have to multiply that by 2.5. Okay? But that said, let's say you didn't see that right away. You can solve these with proportions. This side to this side is going to be proportional to this side over this side, which is 4 over, let's call this one side 2. Okay, now we just cross multiply to solve for side 2. Side 2 equals our cross multiply. 2 times side 2 is equal to 5 times 4. 2 times side 2 is equal to 20. Divide both sides by 2 to get side 2 by itself. Side 2 equals 20 divided by 2, which is 10. So let's go ahead and start filling this in. I said 5 is going to be side 1. I know side 2 by using cross multiplication is going to be 10. So let's do the same thing for side 3. Again, 2 to 5 is going to be equivalent to 3 to side 3. Okay, so again, we're going to cross multiply. That is, I'm going to do 2 times side 3, which is going to be 2 side 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Divide both sides by 2. This crosses out. We're left with side 3 equals 15 over 2. 15 divided by 2. Again, all fractions can be regarded as division. 15 divided by 2. 2 goes into 15 7 times without going over. 7 times 2 is 14. We're going to subtract 15 minus 14 is 1. Add a 0. By adding that 0, I have to bring up a decimal. 2 goes into 10 5 times without going over. 5 times 2 is 10, so we subtract this out. So we know that side 3 is 7.5. Let's add these all up. 5 plus 10 is 15. 15 plus 7, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 with a 0.5 hanging on there. So I know this is 22.5. And I used the fact that you add up all the sides of any figure or shape to find the perimeter. Okay, so that's that one. Alright, so this one's an inequality, and at first glance it looks easy, but it's not, so let's work it out. 25 minus x is less than or equal to 10. It says, for which of the following values is this statement true? So in other words, we want to solve for x, so I'm going to add 25 to both sides. It's going to cross out, left with negative x, and whoops, made a mistake there. Let me start over. (25 minus x is less than 10). Again, we want to solve for x. Since this is positive 25, we're going to subtract 25 from both sides. It's going to cross out. I'm left with negative x equals 10 minus 25 is negative 15. Okay? Oh, why am I putting an equal sign there? Should be less than. Sorry about that. Okay, so I just subtracted 25 from both sides, which is difficult for me to do, obviously. Now we want to solve for x. So imagine there's a 1 in front of there. I'm going to have to divide this by negative 1 and this by negative 1. This is going to cross out and just leave me with positive x. That said, whenever you multiply or divide across the inequality, you can subtract and add, but you cannot divide by a negative or multiply a negative across the inequality without flipping its sign. So because I divided both sides by negative 1, I have to flip this sign. Negative 15 divided by negative 1 is just going to be 15. So this says x is greater than 15. So the only one greater than 15 in the answer choices is 16. Okay, so that's that one. Again, let's see. Negative 5 plus 2 is greater than x. Oh, no, I'm trying to give you another example just so I can illustrate the point. Let me see. X minus x plus 5 is greater than 2. Let's say we were solving this one. I would subtract 5 from both sides, cross that out. That would give me x equals 2 minus 5, which would be negative 3. I do not have to flip the sign since I only subtracted across the negative. Now let's say I had negative 5x is greater than 2. I would have to divide both sides by negative 5, which would cross this out. But because I divided both sides by a negative, that would flip this sign this way, and this would be negative 2 over 5. Again, you can subtract across the inequality. It doesn't affect the direction of the sign. As soon as you divide by a negative, you have to flip the direction of the inequality, which we did right here. Okay, so that's that one. I hope it doesn't load back to course because I didn't mean to click that. Number 13 says how many inches are there in 3 1/3 yards? So you have to know some general measurements to be successful on the ASVAB. There are 3 feet in every yard. Okay, so I know in 3 yards, let's forget about this 1/2 or 1/3 right now. Let's forget about that. I know in 3 yards, there's going to be 3 times 3 are 9 feet. Okay, if there are, and 1/3 yard is going to be the equivalent of 1 foot, so that's going to be plus 1 foot. So in total, there's going to be 10 feet. So 3 1/2 yards is equivalent of 10 feet. Question is, how many inches are there in 3 1/2 yards? There are 12 inches in every foot. So I have to take 10 and multiply it by 12, which we can do right there. 0 times 2 is 0. 1 times 0 is 0. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 1 is 1. Let's add. This is just going to be 120. And we can see that there are 120 inches in 10 feet, which is the same as 3 1/3 yards. If you need me to work this out again, let me try it again to explain it a little more clearly. 3 1/3 yards. Again, there are 3 feet per every yard. So what we can do is put this as a, let me see. Let's make this into a mixed number and see how that works. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 1 is 10. So this is the equivalent of 10 over 3. 3 1/2 yards is, I just converted this mixed number to an improper fraction. There are 3 feet per every yard. 3.25 yards is the same as 10 over 3 yards. So we're going to multiply this by 3. Cross that out. Since those are equivalent, that just gives us 10 feet. Okay, so that's another way to do it. Take the yardage, multiply it by 3, because there are 3 feet in every yard, and you get 10 feet. Okay? All right, this is a pretty challenging question. And it's 14 says, if the figure below is a regular decagon with the center at Q, what is the measure of the indicated angle? Well, regardless, you should know that all circles have 360 degrees in them, okay? So if I were to add up all the angles, so in other words, to go in this complete circle would be 360 degrees, okay? And we only want this sliver of it. So what I like to envision when I look at this is this, all these little slivers. Okay? And if you count them up, there should be 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? So in light of that, we can find the measure of one of these angles right here. Just doing 360 divided by 10. This crosses out, leaves us with 36 over 1. Anything divided by 1 is itself, so this would just be 36. And what this means is, let me clean this back up. What this means is, and one of these slivers, or this angle right here, is 36 degrees. We can see we have 3 of them, so this is going to be 36 and this is going to be 36. So to find this whole measurement, we're going to do 36 times 3. 6 times 3 is 18, carry the 1. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So the sum of all these little angles is going to be 108 degrees, which is the last answer choice there. Okay, 15 says, what is the length of a rectangle if its width is 9 feet and its area is 117 square feet? So again, we're dealing with a rectangle. We're told its width is 9 feet. We don't know what its length is, so I'm going to let that be x. To find the area of a rectangle, you do length times width. We know the area is 117, so let's plug that in. We know its width is 9, so let me denote this as a L just to keep it straight. We don't know what the length is, but we know the width is 9. So to solve for the length, we're going to divide both sides by 9. That's going to cross out. We're going to be left with length equals 117 divided by 9. Again, all fractions can be thought of as long division. So let's work this out. 117 divided by 9. And you're probably saying, well, that doesn't look like it goes into it evenly. But let's take a look. 9 goes into 1. It doesn't. It's too small. And that's a bad 9. Let me fix that. 9 doesn't go into 1. It's too small. 9 goes into 11. 1 time without going over. 1 times 9 is 9. 11 minus 9, 9, 10, 11 is 2. Drop down this 7. 9 goes into 27. 3 times without going over. 3 times 9 is 27. So we can see there's no remainder. Therefore, the length is going to be 13 feet, which is right there. Okay, let's keep going. 16 says to buy a jet ski, Raquel borrowed $3,000 at 9% interest for 4 years. How much money did she have to pay back? So this is a problem regarding simple interest. You need to know that simple interest is I equals PRT, where I stands for the amount of interest accrued, P stands for the principal, or the original amount borrowed, R stands for the interest rate, and it's always a decimal, and T stands for time. So we have all those variables. Let me just rewrite this down here so we can have some room to work with. We're trying to find out what the interest is. Principal is 3,000. The rate is 9%, which is 0.09, and time is 4 years. Okay, so this is how we're going to find how much interest accrues over 4 years. The first thing I'm going to do is multiply 9 by 0.09 by 4, so that's going to get us 3,000. 0.09 times 4 is going to be 0.36. Again, 9 times 4 is 36. Therefore, 0.09 times 4 is 0.36. So now we got to do 3,000 times 0.36. Let's go ahead and work that out. Okay. We're multiplying a whole number by a decimal. Before I can do this, I have to make this decimal a whole number. That is, I'm going to make 0.36 36 by shifting this decimal place twice. In reality, I'm working out 3,000 times 36, albeit with 2 decimals to shift back in at the end. So let's work that out. 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0, 6 times 3 is 18. Add a 0 since we're starting this number. 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 3 is 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 3 is 9. Let's add. 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. 8 plus 0 is 8. 9 plus 1 is 10. Add our 2 decimals back in, 1, 2. So we can see the interest is going to be 1,080. We do have to add this back to our principal of $3,000 because, again, you borrowed $3,000 and it accrued $1,080 over 4 years. So in reality, you're paying back 3,000 plus 1,080, which is going to be 4,080 that you're going to have to pay back for that jet ski. Okay, so that's this practice test. I hope you found the explanations easy to follow. Some of these questions, there's no good explanation for them. You just have to know very basic math principles. But that said, you may have noticed that this section of the ASVAB is much easier than the arithmetic reasoning subtest. And that's how I felt when I took it, and I scored pretty high. You should feel that way through all these practice tests. You should feel as if the math knowledge subtest is a lot easier than arithmetic reasoning. It's very straightforward as long as you know the formula and can make 1 or 2 steps to use the formula. It should be straightforward. But that's all I have for you in this video.